So how did that first part of the video go? I hope it went well, and I hope you understand what slope is, because in the second part of the video we are going to add to that. Because again, our goal is to understand this idea of slope-intercept form. And the first word to that is obviously slope. The other part there is intercept. Now when we're talking about an intercept, we're talking about the y-intercept. So what is the y-intercept? Well, the y-intercept is the coordinate where the line crosses the y-axis. Okay, you want to make sure you get this down in your notes, because what we're learning about today is so great because it is something we're going to use a lot, and you need to understand this concept with slope-intercept form. Anytime we're working with a line, we want it in this form. And so you want to know what that means and what each part of the slope-intercept form is referring to. So the intercept is referring to the y-intercept. Now a graph might cross the x-axis as well, and that's called the x-intercept. But that's not what we want. We want the y-intercept. Alright, so we had a symbol for slope. Remember that symbol for slope was m. Why was it m? Remember, we had no idea. Did you Google it? If you did, maybe send me a note. But for the y-intercept, we're going to use the letter b to represent the y-intercept. Again, why is that? Because I have no idea. Maybe the guy that did it, his name was Bob, and he wanted to use the letter b from his name. I don't know. But we're going to use the letter b to represent the y-intercept. Now, when we're dealing with the y-intercept, where it crosses the y-axis, that's always going to be where x is 0. So the y-intercept is always going to be in the form where x is 0 and y is some number. So let's look at some other property. Let's look at these lines, actually. Let's look at 3 different lines in this lesson. We're going to look at lines A, B, and C. Now let's take a minute and let's look at where these lines cross the y-axis. Let's start with the A line. A crosses the line axis where the y-intercept would be 3. So we're going to say it's the coordinate 0, 3. Let's look at line B. Line B goes through the origin. Remember, that's the name that we give when the x and y axis intersect each other. We call that the origin. That's a coordinate 0, 0. So why don't you look to see where the line C crosses the y-axis and what is that coordinate, and write that down in your notes. Did you get 0, negative 4? Good job. All right. So now that brings us to slope-intercept form. Let's review for a second. Remember the symbol for slope is m. The symbol for the y-intercept is b. Slope-intercept form. Now you want to put this bold in your notes because, like I said, this is going to be really, really important. We're going to use this a lot. Y equals mx plus b. Now the x and y will be your variables. You're going to be replacing m and b with the numbers that are your slope and your y-intercept. So let's go back and let's look at these 3 examples. We'll do the first 2 together, and then the third one you're going to do on your own. Well, let's look at line A. Now remember, our first step is we need to figure out what is the slope of this line. Remember, the slope is the rise over the run. So what we're going to do is we're going to pick a couple of points where that line intersects the grid, as you can see, as I've done here already. So now to find the slope, remember it's going down from left to right, so it's going to be negative. And to get from that first point, we'd go down 4 units, and we'd go across 3 units. So the slope would be negative 4/3. And that can't be reduced, so we just leave it as negative 4/3. Now we want to find the y-intercept. So again, that's the point where it crosses the y-axis. We already talked about that. Remember, that's going to be the coordinate 0, 3. So now we're going to put this all together into slope-intercept form. So remember, that's y equals mx plus b. Now watch this. We're going to put that negative 4/3 in there for our slope. And we're going to put the 3 in there for our y-intercept. And that is the equation for the line, negative 4/3 x plus 3. See how cool that is? All right, let's do another one. Let's look at line B. So again, our first step is to find the slope. The slope, again, is rise over run. So for this time, we're going to, again, we want to pick 2 points that are on the line. And it can be any 2 points that intersect the grid line. It doesn't have to be these 2 points. But I think there's only one other point. Negative 2, negative 4, I look at that. That would have been another coordinate you could use. we always start with the point that's furthest to the left and then go to the right. So this one, we're going to go up, we're going to rise up 4 units, then we're going to go across 2 units. So our slope would be 4 over 2. Now you always reduce your fractions. 4 over 2 reduces to 2 over 1, or you might have just said 4 divided by 2 is 2. Regardless, your slope for this is just 2. Now we got to find our y-intercept. So y-intercept, remember, is that coordinate. We talked about this at the beginning of this video. That's the coordinate 0, 0. Now we're going to put those together into a slope-intercept form. So we're going to drop that slope in there. We're going to drop that y-intercept in there. And we get y equals 2x plus 0, or we could just say y equals 2x. And that's the equation. I love it. It's so simple. All right, let's look at one more. I want you guys to try this one on your own. So again, you're going to find all 3 things: the slope, the y-intercept, and slope-intercept form. So why don't you pause the video, find each of these pieces, and I want to make sure that it's clear, so I want you to write it out in your notes. Slope equals, y-intercept equals, and then write it in slope-intercept form. So pause the video and hit play when you're ready to check to see if you got it right. All right, how'd you do? So for the slope, again, picking 2 points, you'd get 3/4, because you're going to rise up 3 and go over 4. Your y-intercept, you'd find that that line crosses a point 0, negative 4. So when you put it together, you should have gotten y equals 3/4 x. Now you might have said plus negative 4. That's the same as 3/4 x minus 4. Whenever you write plus a negative, it's always proper just to change that to be minus. Or if you have minus a negative, you'd change that to be plus. But in this situation, we'd have 3/4 x minus 4. How'd you do? Did you get it right? I hope you did. And if you didn't, if you struggled on any of that, that's why you want to write those pieces out individually so you can see where you made your mistake. Did you make your mistake with the slope? Did you make it with the y-intercept? Did you get those 2 right and you just put it in the equation wrong? Or if you need to go back, re-watch part of that video. But regardless, I hope that at this point you are understanding this idea of slope-intercept form. And good luck now as you work on today's homework.